Alright, I'll be honest with you, I debated putting this last part in the video or saving it for the more intermediate level, but I do feel that it's fundamental for beginners to understand, so we're going to talk about minor scales. People get very freaked out about these, just like they get freaked out about chords, but every major scale already has a minor scale baked into it. So the beauty is, if you can play all of your different major scales, you by default have your minor scales too. So what on earth am I talking about, right? That doesn't make any sense. Let's go to the piano and I'll show you exactly what I mean. Now, first thing to say about minor scales is that to a lot of people, myself included, they sound very sad. They sound kind of dark and somber. Check this out. And for that reason, a lot of people prefer them. They have a sort of gravitas to them. Let's talk about how we can actually find and work with minor scales. Every major scale has a minor scale built into it. And since they're related, we call it the relative minor. Here's what I mean. To find your relative minor scale, you take any major scale you want, let's say C for this example, and you're going to find the sixth note of that scale. In this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 would be A. Now, if I keep the key signature from C, so again, this is all white keys for this scale. If I keep that scale, but I play from A to A, I get A minor. Watch it. Nothing really mind-blowing, nothing really difficult. All I did was kept all the white keys from the key of C, but I started and ended on A. And that is the A minor scale. And again, they're related. A minor is the relative minor of C major because they're both all white keys. They just start in different places. So the C scale starts on C, obviously, and the A minor scale starts on A. But let's do another example because that one was kind of easy. Let's say we want to find the relative minor of G major. Well, as we remember, the G scale has an F sharp built into it. We talked about that a little bit in the scale video. So as I go to find my minor scale, I need to remember that I'm going to have F sharp, okay? So hang on to that, and let's count up to, again, the sixth note of our G scale, and that's going to show us what our relative minor is. So if you can count to 6, you can do this. Watch. G is 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, so the relative minor of G major is E minor. Now, as I go through, all I have to do is remember the key signature from the key of G. I have to remember that there was an F sharp as I play through this. So watch, here's E, and I'll go up not to F, but to F sharp, just like the G scale. E, F sharp, G, and then everything else is pretty easy after that point. So there we go, that's my E minor scale. And just to drive it home one more time, the G scale had F sharp, right there, and the E minor scale also has F sharp. They're related, it's the same scale basically, but starting in different places. And the cool thing is, this basically means if you know your major scales, you already know the minor scales as well. All you have to do is count up 6 notes and start there. Now what you might have noticed is that finding the relative minor is a little bit of an indirect way to find a minor scale. Right? We take a major scale, then we go to the 6th note, then we start on that. So the question I get asked immediately after showing people that is, well, Corey, how do I just sit down and say, bam, this is a C minor scale? Right? How do I just go right to the scale I want and play it? Well, you're in luck. There's a way to do that as well. And this is called finding the parallel minor. And all that means is we're going to keep the starting note the same, going from C major to C minor. And I'll show you how to do that right now. So again, let's say we have C major, and I want to find C minor, the parallel minor. That also starts on C. The way I do that is I flat the 3rd, the 6th, and the 7th. This works for any major scale, just flat 3, 6, and 7, and you automatically get your minor scale. Check this out. Here's C, 1, 2, and I'm going to flat the 3rd note. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, so I've got to flat that. 7 would have been B, I've got to flat that, and 1. So again, I took my C scale, and I flatted 3, I flatted 6, and I flatted 7. Let's do another example. Let's say we're in the key of A major, and we want to find the parallel minor. So again, going from A major to A minor. Well, the way we're going to do that is we're going to take the A major scale, and I'll play it like this so you can see it better, but I'm going to flat the 3rd, 6th, and 7th notes. 1, 2, 3, I'm going to lower that. 4, 5, 6, I'm going to lower that. 7, lower that. And it turns out that A minor is all white keys. And at this point you may realize, well, hey, I already know that scale. We already talked about A minor. It's all white keys, right? Exactly. Whether we find it from C major using that relative minor method, or whether we find it from A major using the parallel minor, the end result is the same. And I know that might seem a little bit confusing, but really it's more tools in your arsenal. There's 2 different ways to find any minor scale. You can use the relative minor. In this case, we went from C major, went to the 6th note, and found A minor. Or you can use the parallel minor method, which is where you start on the exact same note and just flat 3, 6, and 7 from that major scale. They're both perfectly valid, it's just a question of which one you prefer to use. Okay, now just when you thought you were safe, I'm going to throw one last thing at you, and that's this. For our minor scale, we have a couple alternate versions that we can use that give it a little bit more flavor. So in other words, the major scale, there's really only one version of that. But for the minor scale, there's 3 different versions of minor scales. The first one is the one that we've already talked about. That's called natural minor. And natural minor is referring to the minor scale that is the default, right? Sort of the starting point, the one that we just covered. Now, to add a little bit of flavor, what we can do is sharp the 7th note of a minor scale. And that's what's called the harmonic minor scale. So for example, we learned that A minor is all white keys. But what I can do is I can go from A natural minor, which is our starting point, and instead go to A harmonic minor, which is where we sharp the 7th note. Watch this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's 7, so I'm going to sharp it, and that's A harmonic minor. It's nothing too crazy, that's just a 1-note difference, but it does change the sound of the scale. Check this out. For a lot of people, that sounds sort of Egyptian, right? You have that interesting kind of exotic sound there. But the reason this scale was invented was to give us a little bit more pull. The natural minor scale, if you look at the top 2 notes here, it ends with the whole step. So the whole step doesn't have quite as much pull if I'm playing something in a natural minor key. That's okay, but if I do the harmonic minor, if I have G sharp instead of G natural, listen to the difference. It's just a little bit more definitive, a little bit more final, as opposed to the natural minor scale, which has a G natural. Different sounds, both very useful, but I wanted you to be aware that there are a couple different types of minor scales. That said, there's one last one we're going to talk about, and I almost don't want you to worry about this one. This is one that if you're playing modern music, you're not going to really come across it a ton, but it's called the melodic minor scale. And the melodic minor scale sharps 6 and 7 on the way up, but does the natural minor scale on the way down. So you heard that right, it's different depending on which way you're going. But I'll show you how it goes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm going to sharp 6, I'm going to sharp 7, and then hit my top note. And when I come back down, it's the same as the natural minor scale, all white keys. Here it is all together. Alright, now we've talked about finding the relative minor and the parallel minor, and we've talked about the 3 different types of minor scales once you're in that minor key. The first way is the natural minor, which is the naturally occurring minor scale. The second is the harmonic minor, where we sharp the 7th note to give it a little bit more pull. And the third minor scale is the melodic minor, which is different on the way up than it is on the way down. At this point, we're not really going to do anything new with minor scales, but I know you probably might be feeling like a little bit lost, a little bit hazy, so let's just do one more example where we tie this all together. Let's say we want to find the G minor scale. Well, for this example, let's go with the parallel method. Right? We're going to go from G major, and we're going to use that to find G minor. Okay, so here's G major. We know that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to flat the 3rd, 6th, and 7th notes. Okay, 1, 2, 3, we're going to flat that. 4, 5, 6, I'm going to flat that. And 7, I'm going to flat that as well. And here is my G minor scale. I have 2 flats, B flat and E flat, going from G to G. And now that we have the starting point of our natural minor scale, now we can do some of those alternate versions. So let's say I want to go to G harmonic minor. Well, I'm just going to sharp the 7th note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and here's 7. So I'm going to sharp it, and that's G harmonic minor. If I want to find G melodic minor, well, I'm going to sharp 6 and 7 on the way up. Watch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, here's 6, so I'm going to sharp it. 7, sharp that, and G on top. Then on the way down, it's the same as the natural minor. All together, here's that G melodic minor scale. And again, I don't really want you to worry about the melodic minor all that much. I mainly tell my students to focus on the natural minor and the harmonic minor. Those are the two you're going to use the most often. Now, you might be wondering, well, how does this affect the chords? Right? We talked about pulling the diatonic chords out of the scale. So now that we're in a minor scale, does that sort of change it? Does that throw it off? And the answer is not really. Essentially, we do the same thing. The chords from the key of C are the same chords for the key of A minor. Only instead of calling C 1, we're going to call A minor 1. And then everything else just sort of follows out from there. In other words, A minor used to be 6, but now we're just going to call it 1. Then the B diminished chord would be 2, and C would be 3, etc., etc. It's the exact same 7 chords, but we've just relabeled them. I know this section was a doozy, I know it was a lot to take in, but now we've made it to the action step. What I want you to do is find the relative minor of C, F, and G major, and then I want you to find the parallel minor of those same scales. And of course, an optional add-on to this action step could be finding all of your minor key scales, from A through to G.